on the panel Shri Akash Shah, Vice Chairman EEPC India. We have address by Brigadier Amit Prakash Singh, Defence Attaché, Embassy of India, Berlin. Address by Colonel Ashish Giloria, Defence Attaché, Embassy of India, Seoul. And address by Ms. Ruchita Peri, Senior Fellow at the Vivekanand International Foundation. This is the brief on today's session, and to begin the proceedings of the session, I request Shri Akash Shah, Vice Chairman EEPC India, to kindly deliver the welcome remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pallavi ji. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Eminent panelists in this forum, respected dignitaries, members from the audience, ladies and gentlemen, a very good day and a warm welcome to the second and very important session of the fourth edition of India MSME Defence Week. International partnerships play a very pivotal role in promoting our nation's defence exports and fostering collaborations with international partners. The government of India has set up an ambitious target of $5 billion of exports from the defense sector by 2025. The Indian defense and aerospace manufacturing sector has emerged as the important engineering product segment in the exports growth in the recent past. The government of India's international cooperation initiatives would play an important role towards realizing the goals of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. India's foreign defense policies have also been continuously evolving to support the fast emerging defense and the aerospace sector and its potential markets globally. Over the years, under the able leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, India has been very successful in forging international partnerships in defense sector and enhancing credibility of its defense products and services. This is evident from the record exports achieved over the last few years. Today, leading high-tech defense manufacturing nations, including the US, Europe, and Russia, have much better trust upon our supply chain and our technological capabilities and competitiveness. Moreover, MSMEs are today increasingly participating in this international defense export market by supplying critical components and spares in such highly sensitive sector. In recent years, the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India has been proactively India's linkages towards wider national defense trade. We are grateful that the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of External Affairs has extended their valuable support by participating. We are also grateful to the Department of Commerce for leading the initiative. I'm grateful to the speakers who confirmed and will be sharing their valuable insights today and during the course of this Defense Week. I'm thankful to our eminent guest speakers who are graceful and also to all the support EEPC India, which has created this platform. All the very best to the parties, and look forward to a very productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the welcome remarks and for setting the context of today's discussion. Before we move ahead, I have an announcement. I request the members from the audience who are not speaking to kindly keep their mics on mute to avoid disturbance during the session. Moving on, I request the Shri Brigadier Amit Prakash Singh, Defence Attaché, Embassy of India in Berlin, to kindly share his presentation and make the address.
Very good evening to all of you. I don't have a presentation to share, but I'll give my thoughts on the topics that have been given to me. I'm Brigadier Amit Prakash Singh, Defence Attaché at the Embassy of India at Berlin, and I'm thankful to the EEPC India for inviting me to give a talk in the fourth virtual edition of the IMDW 2024. In the course of next 15 minutes or so, I will address certain key issues pertaining to our potential defense cooperation with my host country, Germany. The growth trajectory of the Indian defense industry has been driven by ongoing territorial disputes and adverse security climate in our neighborhood, need for technological advantages over our adversaries, and to overcome external dependence on defense procurement. This has been duly followed up by policy support of the Government of India in terms of creating a favorable investment climate, introduction of supportive policies such as defense production and export promotion policy, positive indigenization lists, and a high budgetary allocation to the defense sector to facilitate the Make in India initiative. India plans to spend 130 billion US dollars for fleet modernization all across the armed services over the next 5 to 7 years. And the Government of India, as we are all well aware, has opened up the defense industry for private sector participation to provide impetus to indigenous manufacturing. A large number of industrial licenses have been issued to private companies who are now operating in the defense sector. The present annual defense production figures in the ongoing financial year are close to around $15.34 billion, which is up by around 17% from last year. And the defense exports are already touching around $2.63 billion in the ongoing financial year, up by almost 32.5% from last year. And India, as we are all aware, now exports to over 85 countries. The foreign direct investment cap in defense manufacturing has also been raised to 74% and 100% with government approval. The setting up of the Carl Gustav 84mm rocket launcher by the Swedish company in the recent past was one of the achievables as far as 100% FDI in setting up a defense unit in India is concerned. The government has also created two dedicated defense industrial corridors in Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh to act as clusters of defense manufacturing that leverage infrastructure and human capital. Having said that, I would also like to reiterate that we need to encourage research and development, reward innovation, create Indian IP ownership, and promote a robust and self-reliant defense industry, as we still have to cover a lot of ground to be fully self-reliant in defense production. Collaborative tie-ups with partner nations and transfer of technology is also a way ahead in this direction. Germany is one of India's most important partners in Europe. India and Germany have a strategic partnership since the year 2000. And Germany's defense exports to India have already touched 153.75 million euros, which is almost 4 times than what it was earlier. And presently, India ranks third after Ukraine and Singapore in terms of sale of defense equipment by Germany to nations outside. As far as our defense cooperation with Germany is concerned in terms of defense production, there have been a lot of positive indicators on the horizon. Firstly, Germany has started easing up export controls for defense exports to India. In the General Export Authorization number 36, which was introduced on 1st of April this year, India has now been included in the recipients and users for export and transfer of marine equipment, because of which major assemblies and sub-assemblies and other parts and accessories pertaining to naval systems can now be exported to India without the partner German company having to apply for an export license. A case in point is the midlife upgradation of our Shishumar class of submarine, in which certain parts were required, and there was no requirement of the German partner firm to apply for an export license, and the item is being supplied. Germany is also considering giving India the status of a major non-NATO ally, like the one it has accorded to Japan and Australia, which would also foreclose the requirement of obtaining an export license by a German defense company for exports to India. I am also happy to announce that a large number of export license applications that had been lying pending with BAFA, the central licensing authority in Germany, have now been cleared in the last 1 year or so. We have been able to clear almost 90% plus cases, some of which had been lying pending for almost last 2 to 3 years. And this is also a very positive development as far as easing export controls for India are concerned. We are also making all-out efforts to acquaint the German defense industry with the opportunities that are available in the Indian defense production sector, with special reference to investments in defense industrial corridors in India and the potential of the Indian defense industry to facilitate their supply chain resilience. This year, on 6th June 2024, the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers, SIDM, also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Association of the German Security and Defense Industry, namely BDSV, to strengthen India-Germany defense industrial ties. This marks a new chapter in the defense collaboration between the two countries. They are also planning to conduct a defense roundtable on 24th October in New Delhi on the sidelines of the Asia Pacific Conference 2024, which is being organized by the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce. And the German Defense Industry Association, BDSV, has also given a formal proposal for having an exhibition cum seminar at Germany in collaboration with SIDM in April next year, which has been communicated recently and has been shared with the Indian side. Germany has a well-developed and a robust defense production sector with exports of approximately 8.36 billion euros per annum, with an annual growth rate of almost 8% since the last decade. An endeavor must be made to encourage the German defense industry to provide high technology and make investments in the Indian defense production sector. Some of the recent major defense acquisitions that we have carried out insofar as Germany is concerned are the missile detection sensors for the C-295 medium lift transport aircraft, which are planned to be manufactured in India, the engines for the K9 Vajra self-propelled artillery systems, components for our future main battle tank, future infantry combat vehicle projects, as also the wheeled armed platforms that are being made by companies like Mahindra Defense and Tata's, to name a few, in addition to a large number of other acquisitions which are in the pipeline. The Indian Navy has been traditionally dependent on Germany for naval defense platforms and equipment. A case in point is the type the HTW submarines that we had procured from them as part of Project 75 India then in the early 80s, and the various other subsystems that we have been procuring from Germany for the Indian Navy. I've already mentioned that we need to promote German investments as also a transfer of technology in our defense production sector. There have been various positive indicators from German companies about their willingness to share their technology, and a large number of such proposals are on the anvil. To give a further boost to this trend, we need to ensure that we have a favorable investment climate in our country with minimal impediments, provide a single window clearance or a point of contact to the German companies to obviate procedural delays and harassment. We also need to understand the sensitivities and working models of the Germans to arrive at speedy and fruitful negotiations and deals. We also have to establish a bridge between our defense industry associations, in which a beginning has already been made, the defense industrial corridors, and defense companies. At this end, where we have our missions abroad, we would be more than happy to be able to facilitate communication and tie-ups between our defense industrial corridors, our Indian defense companies, and the German companies with whom they may wish to partner. The German companies have expertise in various niche domains like land systems, aerospace, marine systems, engineering, CNC, metallurgy, AI, cyber, to name a few. And we must look at Germany to diversify our defense procurements. In addition to this, the need of the hour is to carry out more such defense roundtables, interactive seminars, B2B meetings, and it must have the indulgence of the Department of Defense Production, Ministry of Defense, and various other stakeholders who are involved in the Indian defense production sector. India and Germany have already elevated their bilateral relations to the level of a strategic partnership. After years of a lull on this front, and after years of the defense and security component of our relationship having lied, having been dormant, things are moving up now. There is growing strategic convergence between India and Germany, marked by an increasing intensity of defense engagements, including high-level visits, meetings, conduct of joint exercises and training, which is likely to aid synergy in defense industrial collaborative tie-ups as well. We recently had the India-Germany Air Force exercise Tarang Shakti in the month of August, which is the first time India and Germany have ever had a bilateral air exercise. We also have German naval ships coming in October for joint exercises with the Indian Navy, as also harboring at Goa, which is also one of the firsts, if I may say. We are also working on a proposal of a logistics exchange agreement between the armed forces of India and Germany. And India, as we are aware, being the focal point in the Indo-Pacific region, would definitely serve as the hub for move and interaction with the armed forces not only of Germany, but also of other European nations. Positive indicators have already started manifesting in terms of easing up of export controls, which I had brought out earlier. The participation of the ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems and Mazagon Docks Limited in the bidding for Project 75 India is a major development and a sign of Germany's willingness to partner with India in the defense sector. While the formalization of defense trade agreements, easing of export controls, and achieving the equivalence of a major non-NATO ally can only be done at the government-to-government level, the strengthening of the defense industrial partnership between India and Germany can be meaningfully achieved only by the proactive involvement of all stakeholders involved in the Indian defense production sector in concert with their German counterparts. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has led to a paradigm shift in Germany's approach to defense and security policy. Germany has assumed a central position in the leadership of the European Union and is carrying out a major review and overhaul of its core strategic concerns and augmenting its armed forces. It has already set aside 100 billion euros to strengthen its armed forces by way of defense procurements, restructuring, and creating infrastructure. Major defense procurements on the anvil insofar as Germany is concerned are purchase of 35 F-35 fighter aircraft from the US at a cost of $8.4 billion, 60 Chinook helicopters at a cost of $8.7 billion, and the Arrow 3 missile defense system from US and Israel at a cost of $3.5 billion. This is a major shift in Germany's stance on defense and security, which would have been unimaginable, say, around 2.5 years back. And the polity in Germany, the populace in Germany are reconciling to the fact that now Germany needs to focus on national and collective defense in concert with its partners, and the German armed forces and the defense production sector has to be ramped up. I must bring to your notice that till a few years back in Germany, people were shy to associate with anything to do with defense or defense production. But in the present scenario, things are moving big time. Germany has ramped up defense production and going in also for off-the-shelf procurements to strengthen its armed forces. In the last 1.5 years or so, since the time I have been here, I have visited several German defense companies, and let me tell you, they are working 24/7, 7 days a week, with almost 3 to 4 shifts a day to ramp up their defense production and to meet the requirements not only of their own armed forces, but also the export commitments that they have made to partner nations in the European Union as part of collective defense, which would have been unthinkable till just about, say, 2 to 3 years back. Germany has also become a major supplier of defense equipment to European Union nations. Arms exports from Germany have increased by 30%, and the German government has approved total weapons exports worth at least 7.5 billion euros in the first half of 2024 alone. And as far as we are concerned, the positive is that Germany is beginning to see India as a natural partner in this region, primarily because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and China's rising assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. India also wants to reduce its traditional dependency in defense imports and wants to diversify its defense procurement. In doing so, Germany is a viable and a good option which we must look at in addition to various other partners that we have. The German Defense Minister, Mr. Boris Pistorius' visit to India last year, the first German Defense Minister to visit India since 2015, provided a thrust to the bilateral defense partnership between India and Germany. He is in favor of making defense cooperation and weapon deals with India easier by treating it as a strategic partner like Australia or Japan. A word about Mr. Boris Pistorius. He is presently, as per the poll ratings, the most popular politician in Germany as on date, and people look up to him to assume leadership roles in the future. And if he has this thought process, it augurs well for future collaborative tie-ups between India and Germany in defense production. India must capitalize on this, as German engineering and technology have proven superiority. They have a very high class of work ethos and working style. There is never a gap between the stated capability of an equipment and what is delivered on ground, as can be ascertained by various users, including those in India, which is not the case in some of the other countries. And coupled with the fact that Germany is easing defense export controls for India to diversify its weapon procurement and facilitate collaborative tie-ups. As India and Germany embark on a path to forge closer defense relations, the prospects of our cooperation in the defense production sector appear bright. They need to be given due attention and impetus to arrive at a meaningful defense industrial partnership with Germany. Thank you so much. I have finished.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the detailed address and for highlighting the various positive developments which have recently taken place in Germany, particularly with respect to the defense sector. And there are very promising opportunities which the Indian companies can tap in the defense sector, and the market entry strategies also you have discussed in detail. So I think this is a good information for the MSMEs who are looking up at exports to the various advanced countries. And thank you for also offering to provide and extend all support to the MSME units who wish to explore business opportunities in the German market. Thank you once again. Moving on, I invite the next speaker for today's session, Colonel Ashish Geloria Gerola, Defense Attaché, Embassy of India, Seoul, Republic of Korea. So I request my team to kindly share his presentation on screen. And Colonel Ashish, I request you to kindly address the gathering.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible, Ms. Pallavi, ma'am?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Is somebody sharing the presentation, or do I have to do it from here?
No, just give us a moment.
Okay, thank you. Oh.
Hello. Hello, is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. So somebody will put it on slideshow view, or shall we go ahead with this?
Sir, kindly proceed. We'll put it on slideshow.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to address the industry representatives as also representatives from EPC. Good evening to Brigadier AP sir, who I think has given out a very candid views as far as the defense industry cooperation to one of the major European countries. I'll be speaking basically about the defense industry cooperation related to India and South Korea. Now, as far as South Korea is concerned, the challenges to defense industry is something which also I would like to highlight. So at the start of it, I'll first cover the India's defense ecosystem, and then subsequently I'll cover about the Korean industry. So as we are all aware that the Indian defense ecosystem, it's the second largest armed forces, and as we have the security situation in Korea, it's quite akin to how the security situation in India is also existing, and that's kind of a similarity why the importance to the defense industry is given both in India and South Korea. As far as the military modernization is concerned, when I'm speaking about India, we've already have investment of almost to the tune of 74.8 billion. There's almost a 57% increase in the capital outlay since 2020, which gives out a very, very good and a promising future for the Indian defense industry. The foreign direct investment, as we already aware, there is a 74% automatic route, which possibly requires much more leverage as far as I would say, as far as India and South Korea is concerned. And there are bilateral forums existing and bilateral MOUs existing, which can be exploited by the Indian defense industry representatives. Maybe we can scroll down if it is not going on slideshow. Coming on to the defense production in India, we had 13.1 billion defense production outlay in 2023-24 and 17 billion in 2024-25. The target is to achieve a 25 billion defense production outlay by 2025-26, which definitely will form also through a lot of cooperation with the foreign partners. As far as India's defense exports is concerned, Brigadier AP had covered in detail, as also he brought out the example of Saab, which has established their first ever, which plans to establish their first ever facility in India through the 100% FDI route. The defense exports, when per se we see when we talk about India and South Korea, there would not be a clear-cut defense export opportunity for, and the reason for that is that uh, it's a developed country. It already has a very robust defense industry ecosystem. In certain platforms, it might also find it's one of the competition in the Indian defense industry. So wherein the defense engagements can happen, and that largely can happen in the areas of supply chains, joint ventures, joint collaboration, joint manufacturing, and joint exports. And possibly that is also one of the areas where the MSME have a major role to play, or I would say MSME have a positive indicator when entering into the supply chain. Moving on next, I'll come to the defense industry. Next, please. The defense industry cooperation per se between India and South Korea, and what are the platforms available to the industry players in India through which we can exploit this particular partnership. Okay. So I'll cover the existing MOUs and the partnership model that we have. The special strategic partnership between India and South Korea dates back to 2015, when the level of partnership was raised to a special strategic partnership level. It was immediately 1 year after Prime Minister Modi's taking over the Prime Minister in 2014, and he made his visit to South Korea in 2015, and that was the time when the partnership model was raised to a special strategic level, which also included a major role of defense industry cooperation. Now, there are certain memorandum of understanding which are existing. While there are many with other countries also, but I would specifically highlight on the 2020 Roadmap on Defense Industry Cooperation, which was signed between the defense ministers of both the sides, which provides a lot of opportunities on areas which I had alluded earlier, that is joint ventures and joint exports. Now, the initial MOU was of 2005, which talks about defense industry and logistic cooperation. This also spoke about, this was the initiation of the defense industry cooperation between the two countries, way back in 2005, when the private players in India had not even entered into the defense sector. Then in 2010, we had the defense cooperation MOU, which was largely related to service to service cooperation between the armed forces of both the countries. Then in 2010, we came out with the defense R&D cooperation. Now, this is also, I would not say it is unique because it might be existing with other countries also, which I'm not aware of, but it provides a lot of opportunities as far as India and Korea is concerned because of a very robust and established defense R&D that Korea has. And this is where we can exploit by engaging with them. There are certain examples to it, which I'll cover subsequently. Then is the 2020 Memorandum of Understanding, which is specifically on the defense industry cooperation and joint ventures. To support these MOUs, now what is there at the government level? At the government level, we have two forums. One is the Joint Committee and one is the Steering Committee. The Joint Committee is led by the Secretary Defense Production, and we are very hopeful now that we have a Secretary DP now on the chair from 24th of August, and this definitely would see a more push. The second is the Steering Committee engagements, which happen between the Defense R&D organization. On our end, it would be the Defense Research and Development Organization, and on the Korean side, it is the Agency for Defense Development. Now, it does not mean that the defense R&D will happen only by DRD. It can also happen by the industry players, also certain players who MSMEs, as also the defense startups who have got some new idea or new technology which they want to partner with any of the country, specifically with South Korea. So the MOU also facilitates that kind of arrangement where two industry players can come together and jointly work on a particular R&D platform and then subsequently build it up together. Okay. Moving forward, I'll talk about the 2020 Defense Industry Cooperation MOU because it has a lot of areas where we can engage with South Korea. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this agreement? It's very interesting that the agreement was to promote joint ventures and joint production facilities under Make in India. Now, one of the specific strategic partnership model that was not carried out under this MOU, but even much before that is the K9 howitzer, self-propelled howitzer system, which is called K9 Vajra in India, and it is now called K9 Thunder as far as Korea is concerned. It is very interesting to note that K9 Thunder or K9 howitzer is the maximum exported self-propelled howitzer system in the world. They are exporting to almost 10 plus countries, exporting or currently maintaining through the supply chains to 10 plus countries across the globe, including India. We had an earlier joint venture of 100 gun systems, which was done between Hanwha Defense, which is one of the biggest defense industry company in Korea, and the Larsen and Toubro on the Indian side. There are plans for repeat orders of these gun systems. However, they are under still negotiations as far as the indigenization content is concerned. Another thing about this MOU is to promote the joint defense R&D by utilizing the strength of each other. So when we say about the strength of each other, it is the defense R&D ecosystem, which includes the defense industry also. The MOU also speaks about facilitating joint exports to third countries. And very interestingly, it gives out the geographical areas across the globe where we can go for joint exports. It includes South Asia, West Asia, Middle East, Central Asia, Africa, and the ASEAN members. Now, it's been 3.5 or 4 years since this MOU has been signed. Now, at the government level, what needs to be pushed is the execution of this MOU, possibly in certain platforms. Now, the existing platform where definitely it can find its way through is the K9 howitzer system, because Larsen and Toubro in Hazira in Gujarat already has a very well-going production facility for the K9 systems. There are certain components which are coming from South Korea. And if you recollect, Brigadier AP also mentioned about the engines of K9, which incidentally, South Korea is also doing a licensed production under a German company, MTU. And therefore, they are not able to, provide clearances to any other country for export of the K9s. However, what development has taken recently in late 2023 is that they have come out with their own engine system. So it's not in open source, but likely by mid of 2025, South Korean defense companies would reduce their dependency on MTU of Germany as far as the engines of that particular characteristics are concerned. And possibly they will have their roll out their own engines for the K9s. Now, when that happens, it provides an opportunity for them, or possibly provides an opportunity to us to push them further for going for a joint export model of K9, which can be one of the most, definitely one of the good success stories as far as India and South Korea cooperation is concerned. Having covered that, other than that, this defense industry MOU of 2020 also covers about various systems. As you can see on the slide, it talks about the land systems, the naval systems, aero, guided weapons, and the defense R&D. And under those systems, it also lists out that what are the subsystems in which the aspects of the MOU can be taken forward. So the inventory is huge. And what I've listed on the view foil is only far and few, because I could not list the complete list over here. But it provides a lot of opportunity wherein we can engage with them, especially in the supply chain, especially in the areas where MSMEs are working. And there have been certain connections which in past few months I've been able to engage certain companies in India with the Koreans. But how to go about that, I will subsequently cover in the following slides. Now, as far as support to the Korean defense companies is concerned, India also gave an assurance through this MOU that the Korean defense companies will be provided certain support, which is mentioned in the white box on the slide. is to the assist in collaborations, facilitate investment in the defense corridors. There have been certain interests that they have shown. However, as brought out by the previous speaker, there have been certain inhibitions in the delays in the procedural delays that sometimes are are a bigger challenge as far as India is concerned. However, they have shown certain interest. In times to come, possibly they will come out with more meaningful investments in the defense corridors. There is a defense investor cell, which obviously provides one-stop information to all the foreign defense investors. Added to that, there was a Korea Plus Center, which was also created, a web platform where all the Korean defense companies interested in the Indian defense market could go onto this particular platform and find out answers to all the questions on how they can reach out to the Indian defense company in a particular platform area, or how they can reach, what are the procedural methods for them to carry out investments in the Indian defense ecosystem. Now, Korea Plus Center, however, has not been exploited to its premium. When I speak to the Korean defense company here, I also try to send out this message and reach out to them that this particular platform needs to be exploited to facilitate their outreach into the Indian defense market. Okay, next please. Now moving on to the Korean defense industry. It is one of the most promising and upcoming defense industry. They were the 18th largest exporter, and from the 18th largest, currently they stand at about 8th or 9th. Certain rankings show them 8th and certain show them 9th. Suffice to say that in a period of 10 years, they have risen to almost by 10 ranks, which is quite a successful story for them. Their total exports in 2022 was 17 billion. Just compare to 2016, where it was just 2.6 billion. So there's a huge jump of defense exports in just 1 year. I'll come to that why it happened. It happened because of sorry, not in just 1 year, but in just 6 years it increased, primarily because of the security situation, the global security situation which was developing, especially the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In 2023, the defense exports stand at about 14 billion. In 2024, they aim to achieve a 20 billion plus mark. And in next 4 to 5 years, the aim of Korean defense industry or the Korean government is to get in top 5 in the defense export rankings, which the way the current trends are showing and the way they are signing the defense deals, I would appreciate that. I think they would be able to achieve top 5 ranking. Now, how have they come up to this particular level? Is through the government handholding. Now, government handholding in South Korean defense industry is very, very positive. Unlike in our case, where we have the Ministry of Defense and under that we have the Department of Defense Production, in South Korea, they have a different department per se. They have the Defense Acquisition and Program Administration, which has a different minister itself. Now, this Defense Acquisition Program Administration, or called DAPA, coordinates all the defense R&D, all the defense imports, all the defense exports, and all the localized defense production. So it is a single ministry which is purely handling the defense industry cooperation with all the countries. So when we have to engage, we also have to engage with DAPA. So this is the centralized system which they created in 2006, and that is what has helped them. Another thing which helped them to reach this particular level is they came out with the private sector into the defense industry right from day one, unlike us. So there are major players who are existing since 2006 into the defense industry, and they have, as on date, become global-sized companies. Another thing is the Agency for Defense Development, which is akin to our DRDO. 80% of the budget is is allocated towards defense R&D, which is quite a huge amount, and that is why they have the current levels of defense exports, because they are able to achieve that amount of futuristic and niche technologies across all domains: land, air, sea, as also subsurface. Another thing to talk about them is the competitive prices coupled with the fast delivery timelines. Now, this is something which, whenever you Google that what is the success story of Korean defense industry, this particular aspect always figures in all the media pieces. And this is the quality, the quantity, the costing, and the timelines. They provide good quality. When I say quantity, it basically means that the production lines are able to facilitate the orders. The production lines are able to facilitate the orders in the given timelines, and sometimes they have even supplied to countries before the expected timelines, which have given them a lot of positivity. And the last thing is the competitive cost. The costing of their defense platforms across the globe is much cheaper compared to a similar kind of a platform with other major defense manufacturers, especially in Europe and in US as well. So that also gives them a very big advantage, and that is the reason they are able to sign defense deal on like monthly basis. And these defense deals are not small; they are all in $1 billion+ level. They have their 4 stars, which they call the major platforms. That is the submarines, the fighter aircraft, the air defense systems, and the K9 howitzer, which I said earlier that they are the leaders in the self-propelled howitzer global exports. Almost 55% share of the global export is with Hanwha Defense, which manufacture this system. One of the major deals that they have done last year is with Poland. Again, courtesy to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, they have done major inroads into the European defense markets, and which has come as quite a surprise because the European defense market was majorly dependent upon France, Germany, Italy, Spain. However, Korea has been able to make quite a large substantial inroads. Another area, geographic area where they are robustly engaging is the Middle East and North African region. This is where they had not ventured earlier, but now in last 2 years, they have signed certain deals and they have also supplied equipment. Specifically with the countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, they are dealing with the K9 self-propelled howitzers and the air defense system, the medium range and the long range SAMs. As far as Egypt is concerned, they again want to partner in the K9 platform as also in the air defense system. In the Southeast Asian market, which has been their traditional market of defense exports, their major platforms include the marine systems and the fighter aircrafts. They are doing a joint fighter aircraft development program, which is the KF-21, a 4.5 generation fighter aircraft, which they are jointly developing with Indonesia. That platform would be inducted into their Air Force by 2026. Apart from that, the KA-50, which is the another fighter aircraft platform available to them as of now, they have carried out exports in recent past to countries like Malaysia, as also in Africa. So to say that that platform has also found competition as far as our own Tejas aircraft is concerned. And possibly one of the reasons that they could outrun in one of our deals was basically because of the timelines and the costing. Okay. Having said about the Korean defense industry, I'll just briefly touch upon their offset policy. They do have a offset policy as similar to what we have it in India. However, I would say that their offset policy, it does not provide that much flexibility, unlike the offset policy of India is concerned. Whenever I speak with the South Korean defense industry players, I do mention about the positives of the Indian offset policy compared to the policy of South Korea. So they have two kinds of offsets, the direct and the indirect offset, which primarily the direct offset is for participating in producing parts used for the weapon systems and the transfer technology for the weapon systems. However, the indirect offset is primarily for the acquisition and the transfer of technology, which is owned by some overseas company. So that's a slight difference between the direct and the indirect offset. They also have certain, next slide please, the okay, so they also have certain percentages as incentives for when offsets are concerned, similar to same like that we have in India. Now, as far as the procedure of offsets is concerned, it's a longish procedure. I will not go into it. Suffice to say that they do have an offset policy, which also can be exploited by our industry players. Now, when they talk about their own SMEs, next slide, they do say how they want to, exploit this particular offset is through engaging more with the SMEs and expanding the base of their own defense industry. So like in India, we are supporting now the MSMEs in the defense sector. Likewise, in Korea also, they are supporting the SMEs in the defense sector. Now, the SMEs in Korea especially face challenge because, as I said earlier, when 2006 the private industry in Korea entered into the defense ecosystem, there were 5 to 6 major big players. They are locally in the Korean language they are called kibols. The kibol are basically they have the monopoly in the defense industry. Whenever I engage with the small and medium enterprises in South Korea, I find this argument that they are finding it very difficult to have their own existence in whatever supply chains or a particular product that they are manufacturing. And they want to reach out to the foreign players as far as some collaborations are concerned. And that is where we can engage own defense industry partners with the Korean companies. So it is difficult to engage with the bigger players because finally it comes down to either special strategic partnership models or G2G contracts. However, the smaller players have also a lot to offer in the supply chains. And that is where the Indian MSMEs can play a role. Recently, in July, we carried out a defense industry cooperation seminar wherein we had certain about 12 to 13 companies from India, and we had about 49 Korean companies in sitting in the same hall. And when they post that, there have been, based on these B2B interactions, there have been certain engagements where Korean companies have shown their interest to collaborate with certain Indian defense companies. I will not name out the companies here, but there have been interest shown, and that is only because of certain engagements that have happened from both the sides. The Indian companies have also reached out to the Korean players and explained them how and what products possibly they can supply. One of the examples is where a company is supplying the personal protective gear, and they find that the personal protective gear in India is manufactured, the same quality possibly is manufactured at a much cheaper cost because of the less cost of labor and the less cost of the raw materials involved. And they found it more meaningful to have some collaboration with this Indian company, export it from India, and then supply it to the bigger companies in Korea. Another thing is the raw materials. There is also an option where the raw material available in India is at a lower and a cheaper cost, which is of interest to the Korean companies, and they get it from India, manufacture it here, and then supply it to their further to their customers. So these are possibly some areas where we can engage with as far as the MSMEs in India and the SMEs in Korea is concerned. Okay, next please. Now talking about the defense R&D. Now I'll just cover that how defense R&D and collaboration of defense R&D is done. Now this slide is particularly from the Agency of Defense Development, which is the mirror organization like DRDO of India. And the global map shows their engagements with all the international players where they have some R&D agreement or MOUs. And Indian DRDO also figures on that map. However, the area or the MOU has not been exploited till date. There has not been any joint defense R&D product that has been jointly developed by Indian and Korean companies. However, the scope exists. To give an example of what we are doing right now is that we try to engage DRDO and ADD, and there was a total list of 32 defense R&D projects that ADD proposed in the month of March, which could be collaborated with the R&D organizations of India. DRDO, after having figured out in their internal discussions, finally we've come out with 5 projects, and these 5 joint R&D projects, one discussion has already taken place between the individual laboratories on either side, that is laboratories of India and Korea. And in the subsequent 2 or 3 engagements, we will go ahead with signing off the agreement on these 5 projects. So these 5 projects typically would be a joint defense R&D with partly done by Indian labs and partly done by Korean labs. That would be decided when the formal agreement is signed, hopefully by before the end of this year, and it will involve a joint investment into this R&D program. So the next slide basically shows on the procedure of this defense R&D. How the South Korean agency goes about it. It is quite familiar to what DRDO also does. DRDO is also engaged with other countries also. But why I am showing it here is that there would be industry players who would want to engage in the R&D sector, and South Korea definitely provides a very, very good defense R&D foundation. So this procedure starts from the calling of the project, which you can see was in the month of February. March was the time when we engaged with them. And right now we are somewhere in the month of September, where the project review is going on between both the sides and how finally the project will be taken forward. Eventually, we'll come to the contact partner stage, which for the South Korean side, it would be the Agency for Defense Development. On the Indian side, it could well be the DRDO, or could well be any partner laboratories of DRDO. Then we go into the project agreement negotiation and project agreement approval, and finally the signing. So once this happens, then over a period of next 2 to 3 years, as it would be, the particular platform product would be developed together. And I am not bringing out the list of the 5 projects that we are planning to do with the South Korean R&D, but all 5 are of futuristic technologies. They are not of something which is existing or something which is in the pipeline for next 2 to 3 years, but we are talking about all futuristic and niche defense technologies. So that is one area that definitely I'm trying to push a lot, because of a very good R&D ecosystem that South Koreans have, and they are very positive to engage with the foreign partners, especially with obviously with the friendly foreign countries. So through the MOU procedure, we have a method of tapping on to their defense technology in a way. Okay, I would rather come more or less towards the end of my talk, and towards the end I would have certain recommendations for the Indian industry partners, especially the MSMEs, which are wanting to reach out to the global partners. And towards that, I have certain recommendations. Now, as far as entering into the Korean defense ecosystem is concerned, it is only through a process wherein you have to register with the DAPA ministry, that is the Defense Acquisition Program Administration. It is like any foreign company in which has to invest into Indian defense system, or not invest, but has to participate in in the foreign bids that are floated out, they have to register with in India, or they need to have some channel partners in India. Now there are countries which have established large number of channel partners in India. I would not name them. I'm sure most of the people are aware. And through these channel partners, a lot of foreign defense industry companies are entering into the Indian defense market. Similarly, we can also exploit the same way, and there have been companies which have done that. They have registered with DAPA some years back, and recently one of the companies last year they had participated in one of the bids, and they won that contract, and they have exported two ISA radars to one of the major missile manufacturing company in Korea. The product delivery is likely to happen maybe by end of this year or early 2025. But however, they have got this thing going. So establishment of channel partners is something which is very important, because you can only participate in the local bids. And I can say with some amount of assurance that the amount of uh, bids that are uploaded on the DAPA websites, even for the foreign procurement, are almost 3 to 4 times in a month. I keep sending those details of the foreign procurement bids to the export promotion cell in the Department of Defense Production, and when they send it across to the Indian defense ecosystem, a lot of Indian defense reps contact us that how do they participate in this particular contract, but they cannot participate until and unless they have registered with DAPA, and the best way is to uh, establish local links through a channel partner. Now, in both the things, the defense wing in the embassy here and me as defense attaché, I would facilitate all out assistance to the Indian defense players to help them in registering with DAPA, as also help them in establishment of channel partners on their particular subsystem or equipment or any supply chain that they are particularly providing. Lastly, the participation in the DEF Expo and the seminars, the more Indian companies will reach out through B2B interactions, it will facilitate their outreach into the Korean ecosystem. So with that, I would wind up my particular talk, and I hope it was of some meaningful use for the Indian defense reps. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Palvi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the detailed presentation and for throwing insight into various aspects, particularly the strategic scope for cooperation between Indian and Korean companies in defense sector, the policy procedures, market entry strategy, and very importantly, the R&D cooperation between the two countries. The recommendations which were suggested by you are also very well thought of, and we will certainly share a copy of the presentation among our members so that they can reach out to you individually in case they need any assistance. I now invite our next speaker for today's forum, Ms. Ruchita Beri. She's the Senior Fellow at Vivekananda International Foundation, and I request her to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Just a second. Give me a minute. What happened? Oh God. Can you hear me? No, I'm not muted.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So just give me a minute. Let me just load my. I don't know what happened. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ruchita Beri. I'm the Senior Fellow at Vivekananda International Foundation, New Delhi. I would like to first of all thank the organizers of the India MSME Defense Week for inviting me to speak on India Africa Defense Cooperation. We've been hearing of India's defense cooperation and defense industry cooperation with various countries by the earlier speakers, but I'm going to focus on Africa. Now, Africa is a region which has unfortunately been in the news for the wrong reasons. But I am very positive about Africa, and I have a optimistic outlook about Africa. And therefore, I am arguing in my presentation that it's strategically important for India to engage with African countries. And this is, I give you 6 reasons why Africa is important for India strategically. And first is that domestically, Prime Minister Modi has elevated Africa in India's foreign and economic policy. He has said that Africa is India's top priority. This is something which he mentioned when he visited Uganda in 2018. The energy security is another reason why Africa is
Madam,
important for India.
sorry to interrupt, but your presentation is not loaded. Would you like to share the same?
Oh, it's not loaded? I
No,
shared it.
no, we can't see the presentation. We can hear you,
Oh,
but the presentation is not visible on screen.
okay, just give me a minute.
Do you want us to run it for you?
Maybe you can do that if it's possible. Otherwise, I thought I had uploaded it, but there seems to be a problem.
Yeah, please allow us to run the presentation. Is it visible on screen?
Not at my end.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. I can't see it. Somehow something has gone wrong from my side. So, okay. Okay.
So we
Yeah.
are at the
Okay.
slide.
Okay. It's not on the slideshow, but anyway, please keep on moving it. So energy security is an important reason why Africa is important for India. Africa produces about 8% of the global crude oil and 6% of global natural gas. So India being an energy deficit country, Africa is an important partner for sourcing energy, especially the crude oil imports, which are currently about 15% of India's total oil imports. Nigeria, Angola, Algeria, Egypt, and Equatorial Guinea are the main partners or suppliers from the region. Next.
I have already moved the slide.
It hasn't come on my side. Anyway, I think I'll forget about the slide show from your side. So the next important reason is the critical minerals, which make Africa very important. And you all know that we are moving towards a low carbon future, where the fact that Africa accounts for about 30% of global reserves in critical minerals such as cobalt, lithium, graphite, which are really needed for low carbon and renewable low carbon future. That makes Africa an important partner to engage with. Next important fact is that both African countries and India have common security challenges. One of the important challenges that the African countries face today is the rise of terrorism, and there's been a rise of terrorism all across Africa, from Nigeria and Mali in West Africa to Libya and Egypt in North Africa to Somalia in the Horn of Africa, which is impacting onto Kenya and Uganda and Ethiopia, and to Mozambique in southern Africa. These are the countries which are facing terrorism, like India. So we do share common problems in that sense. The other important area is the rise of maritime security challenges both in India and Africa. And for the last 2 decades, piracy is a major problem which the Western Indian Ocean countries have faced, especially the countries of the Gulf of Aden in the Indian Ocean region, because of the Somali piracy. Now, in the last decade or so, the piracy levels came down to surge again from the last year onwards. So the the surge of piracy in the Indian Ocean region and also in West Africa, in the Gulf of Guinea region, is again a issue of concern both for India and African countries. For India, the concern in Gulf of Guinea is because Nigeria, which is a major country in West Africa, is also India's foremost trading partner in Africa. So security of sea lanes is from West Africa to India is an area of priority for India also. The next important reason why India should engage with Africa is the Indian diaspora. Now, the African continent as a whole has about 3 million people of Indian origin, or Indian, or including the non-resident Indians living there. While most of them are in East and Southern Africa, but they are present all across Africa too in small numbers. And the recent they are important asset to engage with in terms of building relations with these countries, and also in terms of crisis. They need India's support, as you saw last year during the crisis in Sudan and in Niger. India
Yeah,
had to. Hello.
hello. Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So that during the crisis in Sudan and in Niger, India had to transport Indian community from these two countries to back to India. So now coming on to India-Africa Defense Cooperation, traditionally there have been three main pillars of India's defense cooperation with the African countries. The first important area is that of training, and India has been engaged in training defense officers from African countries since the 60s under the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. And these officers have been trained in various defense establishments all across India. We have also deployed military training teams to African countries like Namibia, Lesotho, Tanzania, Botswana, and Uganda. And also, India has supported the defense training institutions in various countries, like in Ethiopia. We set up the Harar Military Academy. In Nigeria, we helped in setting up the Nigerian Defense Academy, and in Tanzania, the Command and Staff College. The next important pillar is India's contribution to the UN peacekeeping in Africa, and India has been the foremost troop contributing country in the UN peacekeeping operations in Africa. And you find that in the post-Cold War period, since the 90s, Africa has been the main theater for UN peacekeeping, and India has been present in most of the missions, UN peacekeeping missions in Africa. So India has played a major role in contributing to peace in Africa, and one of the major. So India has been appreciated a lot by the African countries as being a reliable and well-trained peacekeeping force, and also there are two other reasons why India's peacekeeping has been appreciated by the African countries. The second reason is the fact that India has mainstreamed gender. In the case of UN peacekeeping, India became the first country to demonstrate gender equality in UN peacekeeping with the deployment of the first all female formed police unit to the UN peacekeeping operation in Liberia in 2007, which was really appreciated not just by the UN officials but also the president of Liberia in the, for the fact that the Indian peacekeeper served as a role model for the women in Liberia, which led to an increase in participation of women in the security sector in the country. The third important reason why India's peacekeeping contribution is unique is that peacekeeping has a humanitarian role. For example, in the Democratic Republic of India, India played a crucial role in evacuating civilians and the UN personnel when a volcano erupted in North Kivu's capital Goma in 2021. Next, I talk about the third important pillar of India-Africa Defence Cooperation, which is maritime cooperation. And here, if one of the important areas in maritime cooperation is the anti-piracy patrol, for which the Indian Navy has been deployed since 2008 off Somalia and Gulf of Aden. Indian Navy has increased its post visits to the African countries. An interesting development has been the India-Mozambique Tanzania trilateral naval exercise, which India initiated in 2022, and the second edition of this exercise took place earlier this year. The other important aspect of maritime cooperation with the African countries is the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief that the Indian Navy has been involved in, whether it is cyclone in Mozambique or floods in Madagascar. It is the Indian Navy which has been the first responder in case of any trouble of this nature emerging in the Indian Ocean littorals of the African continent, and which has really won a lot of kudos. The Indian Navy has won a lot of kudos among the African countries for this. The last important aspect of maritime cooperation is joint surveillance and Indian Navy's involvement in conducting hydrographic surveys with the African countries. Now, let me highlight five new recent developments which have taken place. First is that India has currently signed MOUs on defense cooperations with all the Indian Ocean littoral countries in Africa. Secondly, it was recently announced that India has also going to establish new defense wings in Indian missions in Africa, which were only 5 in past, and it's now going to become 10 defense wings in the entire continent. The next important development is the launch of a structured dialogue between Africa and the Indian countries in the area of defense, which encompasses every aspect of defense cooperation, including defense industry cooperation. The first dialogue of this kind took place in 2020 in Lucknow on the sidelines of the Defense Expo, and the second and the last dialogue, the India-Africa Defense Dialogue, took place during the Defense Expo in Ahmedabad in 2022. The other important structured engagement is the India-Africa Army Chiefs Conclave, which India launched last year in 2023. This is basically to enhance cooperation between the armed forces of the African countries and that of India. And the other important engagement that India has launched with the African countries is the Africa India Field Training Exercise, AFINDEX. The first edition of it was launched in 2019 and the second in 2023. This is basically to enhance the interoperability in UN peacekeeping operation, uh, uh, and it is hoped, I think in the last edition, about 22 countries from Africa participated, delegates from 22 countries in Africa participated in this training exercise. Now, the last important development has been that in the last decade or so, there has been a push for defense exports to Africa. Now, Africa has not been traditionally been a defense area of, which India has focused on defense exports, because the major problem is that of the the financial crunch which these countries face in Africa. So it is definitely an area which now India is looking at, because during the India Africa Defense Dialogue at Gandhinagar, India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh invited the African countries. He said that we need to explore, they need to explore Indian defense equipment and technologies, and and you find that in the last decade or so, India has indeed supplied some equipment to the African countries. These also include patrol vessels and interceptor boats to countries such as Mauritius, Seychelles, and Mozambique. Now, currently, the African country in Africa, you find that Russia is the largest exporter of arms, followed by China, and then by the European countries. And now there are some exports also from countries like Turkey and South Korea to the African region. So where does that leave India? At present, only 10% of India's defense exports are directed towards Africa. Can we enhance this? uh, there is obviously an interest in the African countries towards India's defense equipment, and this was quite evident during the last Defense Expo, and also at the India Africa Defense Dialogue. And the fact that the Ukraine conflict and the resultant supply glitches from for weapons from Russia or from Ukraine have highlighted the importance of diversifying sources of weapon imports to the African countries. So they are looking at India with a fresh light, and they are interested in engaging with the Indian companies on this matter. The recent agreement signed by the HAL for maintenance of Sukhoi 30 fighter aircraft with Uganda reflects this change in Africa. So things, I think, are moving towards the positive side in terms of defense exports of India towards the African region. So now I come to the end of my presentation by giving you 5 suggestions in the way forward. So first, I think, and foremost, India, I think, needs to connect with the ITech defense alumni in Africa, because they are India's ambassadors to Africa. They are the ones who have studied in India. They know the India's defense ecosystem, so they can influence their policymakers about enhancing defense industry cooperation with India. So I think it's very important that India connects with its ITech defense alumni. Second, India should develop a roadmap for defense cooperation in Africa, because Africa is not a monolith. There are 54 countries in Africa, so we have to prioritize our relationship with Africa. Which are the priority countries? with whom we need to engage with, and what are the defense requirements in each of these countries in the region. That is something which needs to be done at a fast pace. Third important factor that we need to look at, suggestion that I provide, is that India may utilize its UN peacekeeping missions to showcase India's defense technology. So that is one platform where India can display its latest technology to the African countries, because there are a number of African peacekeepers too in these missions, which can then, through word of mouth, pass on the messages to their host countries on the utility of Indian weapon systems. Fourth suggestion that I would suggest is looking at the financial crunch which a large number of African countries face. India may consider a new financial mechanism to offer low cost credit for arms or defense equipment transfers to these countries. Fifth, I would suggest setting up of maintenance, repair, and overall MRO facilities of common defense equipment in Africa, something like a Me 17 helicopter. This is something which is common in a large number of African countries. So an MRO facility could be thought of by the Indian defense industry in the future. And finally, I suggest that India may offer Africa a defense partnership which is based on the principles of equality and mutual respect, which is a distinctive feature of India's development partnership with the region. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Thank you for the detailed presentation and for highlighting the various areas of cooperation between India and Africa in the defense sector. The suggested way forward is certainly, very enlightening, and we will definitely share it among the members, because Africa, we feel, is a low-hanging fruit as far as defense cooperation is concerned. So thank you once again. In view of the time constraints, we will not be able to take any questions from the audience, but I have given my email ID in the chat box. So in case you have any queries, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'll be sharing the presentation copies with all the participants at the webinar. So finally, in conclusion, we wish to convey our sincere thanks to all the speakers who have spared out their valuable time for addressing this important session. Our thanks to Sri Akasha, Vice Chairman EPC India, Brigadier A.P. Singh, Defense Attaché, Embassy of India, Berlin, Colonel Ashish Gairola, Defense Attaché, Embassy of India, Seoul, and Ms. Ruchita Berry, Senior Fellow at Vivekananda International Foundation. A special thanks to all the members from the audience who have joined this webinar today. Thank you once again and have a great day.